Well, good morning and welcome into the Steven Singer Studios. I'm Marc Farzetta and welcome into the Farzy Show. Nice to have you along. Coming up on today's show on this fine Hughes Day, our good friend Hugh Douglas will join us from Hot Atlanta. Hugh's got some piping hot takes, and this is one of the more fun conversations Hugh and I have had, so make sure you don't miss that coming up in about 15, 20 minutes. And also today we got Phillies spring training we're going to get to. And the 76ers are back in action tonight at 7:30 when they tip off against the Toronto Raptors. And there's a lot of stuff surrounding that game. A little bit later on today, we got another big bet segment for you, as per usual. 9-1 in my last 10 bets. 9-1. So I'm having myself a good time. Thank you to the Bulls for winning last night by a pretty substantial margin. Not that they needed it going into last night's game at +1. So we'll cover all that. And then also in our morning rush segment, we've been waiting a lot of time for robots to take over the world. Well, at least they're taking over the airport, and we will get to that in just a little bit. But all that and more is coming up on today's program. But what we're going to start with, trade winds are a-blowing in Philadelphia right now. Now, when Daryl Morey took over the team, we all expected a lot of things to happen, and a lot of things happened. You changed the vast majority of your starting lineup now. Danny Green's in there. You also have Seth Curry draining threes for you, who's really your only Sixer consistently draining threes. And he's really your only consistent Sixer who is creating his own shot. And a lot of those guys that are on the squad right now, they don't create their own shot. Joel Embiid obviously does it better than anybody on the squad. But when you talk about a guy that can play the guard position and create his own shot, Kyle Lowry is a guy that can create his own shot. 34 years old, and let's just take this aside, because push this aside for a second. I love, yeah, sure, he's from Philly. That's great. Cardinal Dougherty guy, all that wonderful. No, all that, fine. But when it comes to playing for the Sixers right now, I don't want warm and fuzzies. I want someone who is going to fit what we're doing here, what the Sixers are doing here in Philadelphia. Kyle Lowry is that guy. He is somebody that they miss. He is the type of player, I should say, that they need and that they miss. Somebody that can create their own shot as a guard, and he can do that. I would much rather have Danny Green off the team and rather have a guy like Kyle Lowry on the team. In terms of what you're going to have to give up for him, I think Barstool put it out there yesterday talking about giving up Danny Green, giving up Mike Scott, and also giving up Matisse Thybulle to bring Kyle Lowry here. Trades like this are going to hurt, especially when it's an expiring contract. Kyle Lowry in the last year of his deal. I think Matisse Thybulle, as he's gotten more minutes, it seems, as the season has gone on, has settled into his role a lot more as the season has gone on. He has gotten more minutes. It seems like a guy like Tyrese Maxey has kind of faded away a little bit. And then it seems like Doc Rivers wants to trust in that defense coming off the bench, and that's what Thybulle mostly provides for you. You want to see him hit more threes. You want to see him be that 3-and-D type of guy. So you want to see him continue to mature offensively speaking. But until that happens and the Sixers are in a kind of win-now type of mode, Lowry might be the guy that would force Matisse Thybulle to be traded along with Danny Green, along with the Mike Scott. So I could see that deal happening. What I could also see happening, though, is tagging a first-round pick, a second-round pick, both along for a deal with to get Kyle Lowry here to Philadelphia. And I know a lot of people balk at the idea of, I don't want to balk at the idea of, I don't want to trade a first-round pick. Sixers are the best team in the Eastern Conference. All right, they're the number one spot right now. Those first-round picks aren't going to mean a lot when it comes to this particular draft and this particular team. So if you're telling me a first-round pick's going to stand in the way of a Kyle Lowry or maybe even a Zach LaVine, who is really the apple of my eye, and we'll talk about what he did last night against those Rockets, by the way. But Zach LaVine's more the apple of my eye. But if you could add a shot creator for yourself to this squad, that's what I want the Sixers to do, and I think most people want to see that as well. We all know they got to bolster their bench. That's what we want to see this team continue to do and continue to get better in that regard. So if you're going to be able to get a guy like Kyle Lowry or get a guy, please, Zach LaVine. If you're able to get those guys on this squad, then what are you going to do to help their bench? Because your starting five is already pretty solid. Your starting five is not the problem. But overall, and this is where the story comes from, by the way, the Ringer's Kevin O'Connor put the story out yesterday, and it talked about how the 76ers are looking to make major moves. And it also highlighted the fact that they lost out on the James Harden sweepstakes. Now, it's debatable as to whether or not if the Sixers were all in on James Harden or not. They didn't get him, so I'm going to go ahead and assume they weren't. But Kevin O'Connor does highlight that in his Ringer piece, and he says the Sixers, meanwhile, could make a big acquisition. League sources say the Philadelphia 76ers are still seeking major moves to increase its championship odds. The trade market still needs to take shape in the coming weeks, so realistic targets are unclear. But one name to monitor is the Raptors' Kyle Lowry, 34-year-old Philadelphia native. Again, pushing that aside. In the final season of his contract, veteran perimeter shot creator, who is only one piece, who is really the one piece that the Sixers truly lack. And that's what they're looking for going into the trade market. I'm all about it. I want to see what the price tag is going to be for Zach LaVine before anything else. But if you can bring Kyle Lowry here to the 76ers, an all-star. And by the way, also, little other thing, how many fouls would Joel Embiid and Kyle Lowry draw in one game together on the same team? Would their goal just to be to have guys fouling out left and right with the amount of fouls that they draw? Because I'm for that. Yeah, whatever gets them to the line. So Kyle Lowry potentially coming home to Philadelphia when we look at the trade deadline down the line. We'll look to see whether or not Daryl Morey makes these types of moves. But here's one thing I keep in mind. When Daryl Morey took over the squad, he said that he's not really looking to make changes right out of the gate. Next thing you know, Danny Green, Seth Curry are here. Okay. But he wanted to evaluate what this team looked like around the All-Star break. He wanted to evaluate what this team looked like over the first couple of months of the season before he went out there to start making major moves, as Kevin O'Connor points out. Well, now would be a time that you can look at this team and really know what you have. Absolutely. You know what you have in your starting five. You've lost, one game with your starting for 2 games with your entire starting five playing together? Yeah, I think your starting five is actually okay. But when you talk about the bench, they need to at least do something to bolster who's coming off that bench that's going to keep pace with whatever the starting five is going to do. You need one consistent scorer off that bench to help you out. And I was hoping that would be Matisse Thybulle going into this year. And Mike Scott, the injury sucks. The knee injury is terrible because Mike Scott was actually playing a lot better than he was last year. And last year was a awfully low bar for Mike Scott. To set for himself after coming in the way he did and actually making some threes for you and playing tough defense and playing strong for you. Last year was definitely a regression for him, a step back. This year you started to see him come back into his own a little bit, and then the injury happened, and that knocked everything off course. But when you think about what's coming off that bench, generally speaking, it's not very threatening. You might have some guys that you like. You might have a Maxey that you like to see what he could do down the line, but certainly not right now for you. You like a guy like Matisse Thybulle, but defensively speaking, he's far ahead of his game offensively. And it does make me think, and I was having this conversation the other day, with the amount of minutes that Matisse Thybulle is getting right now versus what he was getting at the beginning of the season, where he wasn't really the first or second guy or third guy off the bench. It makes you think, are the Sixers showcasing him? And I think part of that is yes, but I also think part of that is they wouldn't be showcasing him unless he was earning those minutes, because they're not going to put him out there if he is floundering, if he is having a lot of issues, if he is flailing to try to jump in passing lanes to steal the basketball. No, he's out there and he's still playing very controlled, very within himself. So they're giving him the minutes that he is earning, with possibly the idea of, a little showcase on the side to see if they could incorporate him in a trade to bolster this team down the line when it comes to either Kyle Lowry, it comes to Zach LaVine, or whoever it might be that could be joining the 76ers in the coming weeks. So we'll continue to follow this story today. Would you be in or out on giving up Matisse Thybulle in a trade? Would you be in or out if it means bringing in Kyle Lowry, if it means Zach LaVine? I'm not going to let Thybulle stand in the way of those two names, but I want to see what else is coming along in there. And I know the first-round picks are going to be attached to this in one way or another, because I know Daryl Morey is smart enough to realize when it comes to what's going on right now, you're going to be talking about a 25 to a 30th pick in the NBA draft. I'll part ways with that if it means I get Lowry or Zach LaVine here in Philadelphia. If that helps, yeah, let's do it. And the Bulls would certainly be looking for some first-round picks, no doubt about that. Some other things to get into from yesterday. Oh, real quick, Sixers again, 7:30 tip-off tonight against the Raptors. More on that in a little bit. A couple of things in the football world and in the baseball world I want to get to before we talk to our friend Hugh Douglas. In the baseball world, Rhys Hoskins said yesterday that he's expecting to be ready for opening day of the season. Joe Girardi echoed those sentiments, saying that they're following what he's doing. He had off-season elbow surgery. They're following what he's doing. He's going to be in the starting lineup, and that's what they're projecting. That's what they're expecting from Rhys Hoskins. And it was also interesting to hear from Joe Girardi that he did work in the term DH. They're not doing the DH in the National League this year. I'm not a fan of the DH, but I realized that I'm amazed, actually, that they had it last year and took it away from the National League. I thought once it was there, it wasn't going to go anywhere. But Joe Girardi did work into the conversation when talking about Rhys Hoskins. Hey, you're thinking about holding him back a little bit, ramping up his workload. What are you thinking of doing? And he goes, well, if we had a DH, I'd consider ramping him up. But if we're going to start the season with him as our first baseman, then we're going to start the season with him as our first baseman, and he'll be in the starting lineup if all continues to progress appropriately, which it is right now. I found it interesting that he did work that in there, especially because he was such a long American League man. The National League should just have the DH. I'm not if they have a DH in the American League and they even worked it in last year, I think it's just stupid that they don't use it again. Is it dummy baseball? Does it take away a lot of the strategy? Sure, but it also means more runs. It also means more exciting baseball in a lot of avenues. So I think a lot of people would be on board for that, and even a baseball purist such as myself would be on board for that. And it does open up things for when you do have a guy that you might have in an injury situation like Rhys Hoskins, and it gives you the opportunity to work him into the lineup and progress him along slowly so you're not getting ahead of yourselves and maybe setting yourself up for a setback. But Rhys Hoskins said yesterday that he's on track. He's fully expecting to be there for opening day, and all looks right with the world. Now, something else Rhys Hoskins got into was the Odubel Herrera situation. And this is, I know we've talked about this over the last couple of weeks. Odubel Herrera is getting a shot at redemption here, at least in baseball. And he's getting an opportunity to compete for the center field spot. Him, Adam Hazley are pretty much your front runners right now. Roman Quinn's another name out there. They've added some names throughout this offseason to compete for that spot. Maybe just camp bodies, but who knows? So Odubel Herrera is going to get that shot. And there's been a lot of questions as to whether or not he's going to be accepted in the clubhouse. Joe Girardi came out and said he believes in second chances. Aaron Nola came out and said he believes in second chances. Well, Rhys Hoskins didn't necessarily go down that second chance route when asked about Odubel Herrera and the assault arrest he had with the domestic violence charge against with his girlfriend. Charges were later dropped. Well, Rhys Hoskins addressed it in a way I found to be a little bit more respectful. Here's Rhys Hoskins talking about yesterday. He was asked by Jim Salisbury of NBC Sports Philadelphia about what's it going to be like for Odubel Herrera to go back in that clubhouse amongst this Phillies team and having to earn the respect of his fellow players.
Everyone knows he's going to have to learn or to earn that clubhouse's trust back. I think he knows that as well. So I think that's what we're going to focus on as a group. Obviously, he needs to play and make the team, but we're just going to try to focus on, seeing what he can do to earn our trust back and, let the chips kind of fall where they may.
What I respect about Rhys Hoskins' comments, it wasn't, and he even says later in that same interview, later in that same media session, he even says, I know a lot of guys believe in the second chances. He didn't go down that route. He said, no, he's got to earn it back. He said he's had conversations with Odubel Herrera, but he knows that he's walking into an area where a lot of judgmental eyes are going to be on him. Paraphrasing what Rhys Hoskins saying. And I respect that because it's not just right out of the way, oh, yeah, he's earned it, come on in. There should be a time for reservation where you understand, you think to yourself, is he really sorry for what happened? Is he acknowledging that we all know what happened? And does he understand he's coming into this room to not just earn a spot in the starting lineup or earn a spot in center field? He's coming in here to earn our trust back as well, because we don't want to look at him after, let's say he starts up. Say you're Odubel Herrera's teammate. Say he starts up and he's actually looking hot again. He's actually looking good again. He's actually looking like an all-star from a couple of years ago that he was again. And a guy that got that big contract from Matt Klentak's regime. Let's say he's looking like that again, and then something else happens and he's out again. He got an 85-game suspension for what happened. He missed all of the shortened season last year, and now he's getting an opportunity to come back again. Now, last year he was in minor league camp. But let's say all is going well, and then the next thing you know, he's got to be out again because he can't control himself. You don't want to trust that. That's just trust from a teammate from a sports perspective, let alone a worldly perspective about how you're supposed to, act in certain situations. So I at least give Rhys Hoskins credit for acknowledging that trust hasn't necessarily been earned back yet. They just got to camp. They just had their first workout yesterday. So I respect him for at least saying that the trust has to come back into the situation as he earns it along the way, if he in fact does. So credit to Rhys Hoskins. First workout, like I said, was yesterday for the Phillies. We did talk about it yesterday. If you missed the story, JT Realmuto has a broken thumb, but hopefully we'll be ready for opening day as well. In the football world, we'll get on this a little bit more here. We learned over the weekend DeSean Jackson will not be coming back. We all assumed that was going to be the case. And then it was also made official, or will be made officially official when the new league year starts up in a couple weeks. Alshon Jeffrey gone as well. How will people remember Alshon Jeffrey's time here in Philadelphia? We're going to get into the DeSean Jackson conversation a little bit more with Hugh Douglas a little bit later, but Alshon Jeffrey went from being that target that's always open because he was a big body guy that could go up and get it. He also had some decent speed to go down the field. You could throw it up to him and he'd go up and get it and all that. Helped you win a Super Bowl, as we all know. But then, we talked to Joe Santoliquito yesterday, and Joe wrote the article that was the first domino to fall, as I said throughout the show. But the other guy that was helping tip some dominoes that at least we all attribute a lot of those tipping of dominoes to was Alshon Jeffrey. Is Alshon Jeffrey, for being a guy that would supposedly run to Josina Anderson, formerly of ESPN, and run to Josina Anderson and say, oh, Carson Wentz won't do this, Carson Wentz won't do that, Carson Wentz is terrible. That was supposedly Alshon Jeffrey, the rat. So here in Philadelphia, as you comment on YouTube today, on Twitch, on all our social media platforms, how will you remember Alshon Jeffrey? Is it as simple as this? Super Bowl champion? Super Bowl interview that was wildly entertaining if you haven't seen it. There's a lot of cursing in it, and I know some people have this on while they're the kids are up and all that, so I'm not going to play it. But if you haven't seen it, it's hilarious. But Alshon Jeffrey, the rat, Alshon Jeffrey, the Super Bowl champion, Alshon Jeffrey, the pass through his hands from Nick Foles against the New Orleans Saints. How are you going to remember Alshon Jeffrey here in Philadelphia? Before we get to Hugh, I will say this about DeSean Jackson. I really do feel robbed. And when I think of DeSean, I immediately think of Chip Kelly. I think of having, 24 touchdowns from 60 yards out plus, most in NFL history. That's what I think of when I think of DeSean Jackson. But then I think about what could have been here in Philadelphia, and I get pissed off at Chip Kelly. Because this was a generational player, maybe not across the league, but in Philadelphia, think if we would have had a Steve Smith type of career where DeSean Jackson doesn't go anywhere until the last couple of years of his career. Like these last few years would be with somebody else, not the Eagles. You would have had the all-time leading receiver, the all-time leading receptions, touchdowns, the whole thing. And you were really robbed of that because Chip didn't like him. That's really what it came down to. And you talk about having that home run capability. That's what DeSean Jackson had every single time he stepped onto the football field. And to be robbed of that, there's some great years he had with Washington, some good years he had in Tampa Bay. And then you talk about what happened here in Philadelphia, what could have been if he would have stayed here. And I'll get into this with you, but we talked about, T.O., and we talked about some of the best receivers I've seen just in my lifetime as a Philadelphia Eagles fan. And there's not a lot of guys that are out there, and they really jump out to you at the wide receiver spot. And T.O. was only here for 2 years, and both years, even though the second year was abbreviated, 7 or 8 games, whatever it was, both those games, both those seasons, Terrell Owens was the leading receiver on the Eagles. Both years were shortened either due to injury or suspension, and he still led the team in receiving. And I think about it, even though it was brief, he was the best person I ever saw put on an Eagles wide receiver jersey. But after that, I'm talking about in my time following the Philadelphia Eagles, DeSean's number 2 in that regard. Irving Fryer was a stud, and in his years was really good. But in terms of that, take the ball from here, from point A to point B, and point B is the end zone, DeSean had that home run capability throughout. So it's the end of an era, but it's the end of an era again. I don't feel nearly as bad as I did the first time around with Chip Kelly, and that is pretty disturbing. Also in football, some news came out about the former quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, Carson Wentz. And I know some people might put a lot of stank on this today, but I'm going to do my best to do what to keep my promise to you fine people and avoid the piping hot take. All right. And as I've said, it's not a hot take if you believe it, but I think some people will read a quote to you today and they will put stank on it that doesn't need to be there. And that quote will be from Michael Pittman Jr., wide receiver from the Indianapolis Colts, number 11 for the Indianapolis Colts. And the quote is that he's not giving up the number 11 for Carson. And Carson said in return, he said, that's okay. I'm going to change anyway. And how some people might interpret that, or how some people might represent that to you, the listening and viewing audience, is, oh, that's okay. Carson Wentz saying, oh, that's okay, Michael. I was going to change anyway. And that's kind of how I read it. And TMZ got the interview. And instead of reading you the quote, just reading you or telling you the quote, I'm going to let Michael Pittman Jr., courtesy of TMZ, tell you how the story played out. With Michael Pittman Jr., number 11 for the Indianapolis Colts, is not giving up number 11 to give to Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz to go with a different number. So here's a little snippet of the interview with TMZ that Michael Porter Jr. did when he was asked about possibly giving up the number 11 for his new quarterback.
Spoke to him, and he was just seeing like how like locked in I was to 11, and I told him that I was locked in. And he was like, that's cool, bro, because I'm probably going to switch anyway. So it went really well, and he's just a cool guy. I mean, like, he didn't try to press me or anything like that.
So he was nice about it. Great. I've heard of things being changed up, things, offers of a lot of cash to get a number back. Apparently that's not going to be the case here. And if you're Carson Wentz, I think you would like the idea of just a completely fresh start. But I don't know how attached he is to the number 11, but he's going to get a fresh start out there. Hey, Peyton Manning went from Indianapolis to Denver and changed his number up, got a fresh start out of it there. So it looks like he's going to be doing that same type of thing in Indianapolis. Now, my mind wanders throughout the day. I got a wild imagination. And I just went I was like, what if? Just what if? And this is not a report. This isn't, I haven't talked to somebody in Indianapolis that gave me this little tidbit of information. I am merely just putting this out there. Just because it's where I went. If I'm Frank Reich, I'm telling Michael Pittman Jr. to not give up your number. And why would I do that? I would do that. Now, I'm doing this behind the scenes. I'm not doing this I'm not doing this in front of Carson. I'm saying behind the scenes. I would tell if I'm Frank Reich, I would tell Michael Pittman Jr., don't give up your number. Like, we can't start out a culture here that we're trying to avoid from Philadelphia. And what I mean by that is, can't let Carson come in here and have his run of the mill. He's got to earn the respect of his teammates. He's got to earn the trust of his teammates. He's got to earn the respect of the locker room, because what happened in Philadelphia wasn't the best setting where everyone was like, curtailing to whatever Carson wanted. So I think it would send a good message if Frank Reich just said, hey, you know what? We're not even going to start off with giving him his number. You keep that number. Now, do I think that happened? No. But it's just where my mind went yesterday. And it turns out Michael Pittman Jr. very attached to that number, and he's not going to be given up to Carson Wentz, so he gets a fresh start overall. So that was just an interesting story that I know made its rounds yesterday. Coming up in a second, we're going to hear from Hugh Douglas when he talks about trying to get his number 53 back when he came back to the Philadelphia Eagles from the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we'll get into that in just a little bit. But right now, I do have to tell you about our good friends at Steven Singer Jeweler here at the Steven Singer Studios. I love telling you about my friend Steven Singer because he does what I like to do. He takes care of people. That's what he does. Other corner of 8th and Walnut, or IHateStevenSinger.com. Check it all out. Check out their amazing inventory of fine diamonds, beautiful jewelry, and all the stuff they have to offer you, the customer here in Philadelphia. Go to IHateStevenSinger.com, and right now, they're adhering to all CDC guidelines as they have been doing throughout the pandemic. You use the appointment scheduler. You make an appointment at Steven Singer Jewelers. You go there. Think of them as a jewelry doctor almost. You make the appointment. You show up, and they take great care of you. You walk out of there feeling fantastic. What could be better than that? Go to Steven Singer Jewelers, IHateStevenSinger.com, the other corner at 8th and Walnut. Steven likes to think of himself as a combination of Walmart and Tiffany's. If they had a baby, that would be Steven Singer Jewelers. They have everything set up, plexiglass, all that, and they walk you through everything when it comes to the beautiful diamonds that you can get there. Thinking about getting married, thinking about getting engaged, go to Steven Singer Jewelers, and you know you're going to be treated with respect. You're also going to be treated in a way where you don't feel pressure. You don't feel like you have to haggle, because everything there is handled by jewelry experts, and everything there is at the perfect price. IHateStevenSinger.com, the other corner of 8th and Walnut. Use the appointment scheduler. Do what I do and check out Steven Singer Jewelers at IHateStevenSinger.com. Coming up, we got our morning rush. We also have our big bet segment, which I'm more than happy to get to. But right now, we're going to jump on the Zados Investments guest line and talk to our good friend, Hugh Lamont Douglas III, on this fine HUGHESDAY. This is why Tuesdays are my favorite, because they're not Tuesdays anymore. They're HUGHESDAYs. What's up, brother?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Apparently not as good as you, because I remember a time, Hugh Douglas, when I was losing my hair, and I was fighting the good fight, and you were like, just let go. You just got to let go, man. Just let go. And I'm like, no, man, I'm not even 30 yet. I don't want to let go. And you're like, just let go. And then you told me that's what you told Donovan McNabb, to just let go. And then he let go. And then you let go, obviously, for a long time. And then I see on your Instagram, you're betraying the bald community. You're getting the implants.
Yeah, I got the hair plug. So now, as you can see it, if you can see a little bit, I got a little bit of hair. Shout out to Dr. Daniel. He took it from where I had hair, and he put it where I didn't have hair. and you know what, Mark? It's like, I mean, it just looks like I've been bald for so long. It's like, I don't know how I feel about having hair, or my hair is about to grow. So
right.
I'll probably go to Clubber Lane route. I'll probably the mohawk, with the beard. I'll probably do that.
You can pull that off.
Yeah, I'm just kind of it's just kind of weird to know that your hair, like, hey, in a couple months, you're gonna have hair where you hadn't had it before in a long time. So yeah, it's a little weird.
Now, look, there's plenty of football to get to, and there's Wentz stuff, whatever. But push that aside for a second. How did this come about that all of a sudden you were going to go get the what's the technical name for it? Hair restoration?
Yeah, hair restoration. Hair Atlanta. It's North Atlanta Hair Restoration.
Okay.
And it's Dr. Daniel. And so what happened was, we work in radio. And we have this great thing in radio where, we do promotions and things of that nature. And so basically it was like, hey, I was approached. Hey, my one of my coworkers did it before, Mike Bell. And if you see Mike Bell, his hair has grown. He has luscious locks. He's back in the game. You can't tell him anything. And so they were like, hey, Dr. Daniel got so much success, we need another guy. And I was like, well, I'm not that pressed to have hair.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, could you find somebody else? He needs to be a black guy. Okay, I'm black, but can't you find?
You are black.
Well, he needs to be on air, and he needs to be bald. And so you're the only guy.
Okay.
And so I was like, my boss was talking to me about it, and I was like, boss, I don't know how I feel about having hair, because I kind of just like being able to shave it and go.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't really have to worry about, calling the barber to get the barber chair or anything. And he wrote me into it. And now, mind you, my boss is bald too. He's bald.
Oh, but he's not a black guy, apparently.
No, he is a black guy.
What the hell? Oh, he's not on air.
But he's not on air.
Okay, right.
He didn't check all three boxes. So, so he only checked two boxes. I checked all three. So I got roped into it. Met Dr. Daniel. Had me and him talked about it. Great guy. He's a mountain climber. He likes to climb mountains. Yeah.
Okay.
And you know what, Mark? It's funny because when I was laying there, I was wondering, like, he was telling me about all this mountain climbing and the fact that he likes to take, cold, like he jumps in cold, immerses himself in extra cold water to relax and everything. And he's talking about doing yoga and everything. And I was like, wow, Doc is a little different. And as he was doing my hair, I was like, I see why Doc is different, because he's looking at freaking hair follicles all damn day long. He's doing this about 7 or 8 times a week. Can you imagine, Mark?
This is amazing.
One hair follicle from an area, and they take it and they pull it out, They pull it out and they put it where you don't have hair.
Mm.
Now they call them grafts. They're called grafts, and they take like at a time they take 500 follicles from an area at a time.
Mm.
So just imagine he has to take out the follicle. He's counting. They have to count out 500 follicles and put them in a petri dish, and then go somewhere else and get 500 more and put them in a petri dish, and then take all five like my graph was like 2,200 follicles.
Oh wow.
2,200 hair follicles and put them here.
Mm.
I'm like, and you could just imagine I'm laying there and he's like individually, like this is an individual job. Like he's plucking and like he's putting them in. And I was like, wow, I see why this guy he needs to relax, because this right here is a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of work right there.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, I used to, as a younger balding man, I would watch those infomercials at night and just dream of getting the hair restoration. But I love the baldness. I honestly do.
You know what? I'm a little torn now, but this is the thing. This is the kicker. I can transition. I can go back and forth. I can straddle the line, Mark. I can wear the mohawk if I want to wear the mohawk.
Right.
I can go back bald if I want to. I got options. I'm almost 50 and I got options.
be honest, it was the Kimbo Slice references, right? You were done with that, and that's where you're like, damn it, I'm getting hair restoration.
Yeah, I'm going to the hair restoration. But it's like, hey, and then it's like, hey, do something with your beard. I'm like, what you mean do? This beard is awesome.
Yeah. No, you leave that beard alone. You're fine.
A little bit. For what? Trim it up for what? Now I have to go. Now listen, I'm going to have to go to the barbershop in a couple months. So it's going to be kind of weird. Yeah, it's going to be weird. It's going to be weird.
Yeah, well, hey, I'll say this. The worst thing about going bald was you don't go to the barbershop anymore. And I loved my barber.
Well, yeah,
my barber, it was good times.
It's all the conversations and everything they have about sports and life and things of that nature.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get back to all of that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, obviously it is Hugh's Day, and that covers the hair restoration portion of the conversation.
Shameless plug.
But it finally happened, brother. It finally happened. Carson Wentz got traded. It didn't drag on for another month or anything like that.
No.
They get back a third-round pick, and they also get back a conditional second-round pick that can be bumped up to a first. I'm sure you've seen it. If he plays 75% of the snaps or 70%, and he and the Colts make the playoffs. First off, where were you, and what was your reaction when you heard Carson Wentz had finally been traded?
Well, I woke up and I was like, oh, wow. Carson Wentz is traded.
Oh, because you're doing morning radio in Atlanta, so 92.9 the game.
Yes.
And you took your little siesta?
Yeah, I took my siesta, and I was like, oh, wow. He's traded. You kind of knew it was coming, and, talking to people that are close to the situation, kind of knew that it was coming. It was just a matter of time, and it was just about, getting what they wanted, with the conversation that they wanted for him. And the first thing I think I saw a tweet where he was shooting somebody to deuce. I couldn't see who the person was.
Right.
But he was shooting them to deuce, and he was happy about it, which I'm sure he is, working with Frank Wright. You're talking about the guy who he had the most success under, going to Indianapolis, and I'm sure that Indianapolis is excited about having a quarterback of his caliber. They're thinking playoffs. And, even though he's going to a new place, the pressure's on.
Sure.
They're expecting him to come in and pick right up where Phillip Rivers left off and go beyond that. Because there were some rumblings about him in the offense early on and things of that nature. So they're expecting Carson Wentz to come in and just get right going with that.
Yeah, it certainly seems like it. As far as the price tag, it sounds like after everything went down, more of the truth, I guess, or more legitimate things came out, that it seemed like the Colts were really the only team that were bidding on Carson Wentz, and they just stuck to their guns when it came to that third and conditional second-round pick. I mean, I look at it and I anticipated the trade thinking, I think Howie's going to get decent value for Carson Wentz. And I think they're going to get a first-round pick in return. So if you're telling me they get a 1 and a 3, I'm still happy with a 3 and a 2 for Carson, considering you're trading for him when he is at his lowest value possible.
Yeah. I mean, that's good. That is pretty good. And you just don't know. Hopefully, I know a lot of people are pulling for him to do well. I hope he does well. He looks happy and, things of that nature. But hey, it's it might be kind of tough, but I do like the fact that he's working with Frank because
Sure.
I'm a firm believer in working with somebody that knows your strengths and knows your weaknesses, and he's going to put him in the best position to be successful.
How important was that to you? Obviously, you weren't a quarterback, but playing edge rusher, playing defensive end. How important is it to have a coach that you feel comfortable with?
I think it's very important. I think it's somebody that knows your strengths and know how you play. I think back on Jim Johnson and how many times Jim Johnson installed a defense and he adjusted it because I was doing something that he didn't design the defense to do, but he said, okay, I'm going to change it because I see this is what you're doing in this defense. So he did that quite a bit, and he did a great job of putting the players that he had when he was there in position to be successful. You look at Brian Dawkins. He was already on a Hall of Fame trajectory, but when Jim Johnson came there and allowed Brian to do some of the things that he did, it's still amazing to me this day how when you look at the way that Brian Dawkins played the game. Brian Dawkins was a safety, he was a cornerback, and a linebacker, all in a small package. He could play all three of those positions, or he played a role in the defense similar to that. You could play him up in the box for run support. You could put him one-on-one in coverage, and he was a safety. He did everything, and he would knock your block off. I had to clean that up because I was about to say something else. But yeah, he would knock your block off. So that's what made Brian great because, when you have a guy like that on the field and you have that much versatility, it makes it easy to call defenses and let defensive linemen such as myself get after.
Yeah, it's always the thing that I think great coaches do. They coach to what they have. They don't make what they have. They don't mold them to their scheme. They mold their scheme to what they have. And I think that's what great coaches do.
Yeah, what's funny about that, Mark, is that's a simple concept, but isn't it amazing how some coaches really don't follow that concept? Hey, I know these players can do this. I know this is their strength. How about I play towards their strength? Nah, that's not. No, that sounds too much like right. I'm gonna do what I want to do. Yeah,
where's the glory for me in that? Where's my victory in that?
Where's the success for me in the?
Yeah. How does that make me look smart?
Yeah.
Now, there's something interesting about this Carson Wentz deal. He's going to Indianapolis, where somebody already has the number 11. Michael Pittman already has. Okay. All right. So I thought. Okay. So I knew that you knew I was going to ask you about this.
Yes.
So you came back to Philadelphia with you wanted number 53 back, right? Yeah. Now Carson Wentz is not going to get 11 back, and that's a story for another day. But what did you have to do to get number 53 back? And also, what is the wildest story you've ever heard of a player trying to get the number they wanted?
Well, what I had to do to get it back, they kind of had already, from what I heard, they had already kind of agreed to ski as my old teammates. Like, Trotter and those guys.
Okay.
When I was coming back, they kind of told Semino, they was like, Hugh coming back to get his number. He coming back to get it. You just make sure you get the money to get it. So Mark kind of knew I was going to ask. So he and I thank him for this, man, because like Michael, he could have Michael Pittman. He could have did that. He could have Michael Pittman and said no. And there's nothing I could have did. I appreciate him being gracious enough to allow me to buy it back. But I went through that in Jacksonville. When I went to Jacksonville, it was a guy named TJ Slaughter. He wore number 53, and I talked to him about it. And he was mulling it over. And then at the last damn minute, Marc Farzetta, he said no.
Oh!
And I was pissed. But what could I do?
Right.
I couldn't fight him over the number. I couldn't take it from him, with things like that. But I was upset. And somebody asked me today, they said, why are players so attached to numbers? And I was like, that's a great question to ask. I have no answer. Why? Because when I thought about this today. When I was in high school, I wore a tight end's number, playing outside linebacker. I wore number 83. At Central State, I started off wearing number 54 when I was a freshman. Ended up going to 53. So it was one of those things. I guess it was a college thing for me. But when I think about when I played when I was younger, my attachment to a number wasn't that great. But I don't know what it is. I mean, some guys, that's their whole identity. When you think about Donovan McNabb, think about number 5.
Right.
he wore to Syracuse and everything. I think that it probably goes back to college. And I know Carson Wentz won in college. But you know what the funny thing about that is, Mark? I was thinking about this. Michael Pittman, he did what he was supposed to do. He didn't want to give up his number, so he didn't give it up. But dude, you play receiver. Carson plays quarterback. Think about that for a minute.
Yeah, you're going to see the ball for a while.
Second year. You're going into your second year. You're the quarterback. You told the guy that holds your career in the palm of his hand. You told him respectfully no. Come on, man. Think about it.
Not a good business decision. There better be a legit reason as to why he wants that number.
Think about it. Think about it now. Now, I don't know Carson Wentz. I don't know him that well. I don't know him.
Mm-hmm.
But the one guy, if I'm a receiver that I do not want to, get on the bad side of when he first gets there and he's trying to figure out who his go-to guys are going to be, is me. You know what I mean? So, hey, man, he stood his ground. He kept his number, and he gave his reasons why he kept it. But I'm gonna be watching all season long when football season comes back around to see how that plays out.
How many targets for Michael?
Oh, man.
He'll be checking the box scores.
Even if it's targeted, even if it's him that he's targeted, how he goes to his second read or something like that. Yeah, I'm gonna watch all that because I'm telling you, it's gonna be like he's okay with it now, but as it stews, it might be a problem.
Right? No, I get it. I get it. Can I be so bold? Can you give me a ballpark for 53 from Semino? Can you give me a ballpark?
It was 10 grand. 10 grand.
10 grand for your number?
Yeah, 10 grand.
God bless you.
That's like, like that's low. Like some guys, it all depends.
What have you heard? What's the craziest story?
Man, I've heard guys give up like 50 grand for a number.
Oh
man, it all depends. Like it just depends. Like, LeBron James, he ain't paying for nobody's number. He just takes what he wants.
Yeah, right. Sure.
I remember when I first got to Philadelphia, Ray Rose gave me 53. Like he took it from ND Kalu. And I was mad about that. And I ended up paying ND for the number because I was just like, it's one of those things, man. If the coach really wanted to, they could have strong-armed Michael Pittman and took that number.
Mm-hmm.
If Carson Wentz made a big stink about it, he probably could have got that number.
Well, let me run this by you because I have a little conspiracy theory here.
Uh-huh.
No validity. I haven't talked to anybody. This was my own crazy brain working. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What if Frank Reich told Michael Pittman, "Hey, don't give up your number"? I want Carson to realize he's got to earn those stripes that he had in Philadelphia. He's got to earn it here. We can't just have him come here and he gets everything. You have to say, no, keep that number. What if that happened?
You know what? Maybe. And maybe he's looking at it like, hey, it's a new start, fresh start. New me. New me, no regrets. No regrets.
Yeah, going from the midnight green to the Colts blue.
Yeah,
a couple of things. Deshaun Jackson, no longer with the Eagles. They're going to be released. Same thing with Alshon Jeffrey in the new league year and all that. But Deshaun Jackson in particular. Now, obviously, you didn't play with Deshaun, but you saw him when he was just getting started here in Philadelphia. And he might not be a generational wide receiver, but he certainly was supposed to be a generational wide receiver here in Philadelphia that ended terribly with Chip Kelly coming to town. And Deshaun had a great year. He'd probably be the Eagles' all-time leading receiver and everything. And it was cut short because of Chip. And then he comes back, and it left a lot to be desired because all the injuries he was dealing with and all the unfortunate circumstances that surrounded that. But when you look at Deshaun Jackson, obviously T.O. was the single best person I ever saw put on an Eagles jersey as a wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
After that, when I talk about guys that I got to watch the entire career of, Deshaun's right there, man, in terms of just being able to score from anywhere on the field, most 60-plus yard touchdowns in history in the NFL, receptions in the NFL. And I look at his career here in Philadelphia, and as great as it was in the early stages of his career, it only makes me long for what could have been if Chip never came. Now, sure, they won a Super Bowl, but still, just in terms of the career in itself, it makes me wonder about what could have happened in Philly.
Yeah, he wouldn't have went to Washington, you thinking that, and he would have been there, and he would have held some of probably the Eagles' all-time records and things of that nature. It just didn't happen that way.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot, I wasn't in the city at that time, but there was a lot of backstory going on about some of the stuff that Deshaun Jackson was doing and things like that. And it's just unfortunate that you look at a guy that has phenomenal talent that really didn't get to spend his whole career in a great city such as Philadelphia. And then when he came back, to your point, Mark, was hurt all the time. Really didn't get to see the Deshaun Jackson that we thought we were going to see. I remember a tweet that Carson Wentz sent out talking about, hooking up with Deshaun and making some great plays and things of that nature. It's amazing how, that was not that long ago. And when you look at it, we didn't get to see any of that. Mm-hmm. So it was one of those things like, man, it's just unfortunate. But I mean, thus is football. That's how it works.
Mm-hmm. So we talked a little bit about Jalen Hurts last week, and I'm with you. And I think anybody that tells you how long this rebuild that's going to happen with the Eagles, anyone who tells you they know how long it's going to take, I think they're lying, because it all depends if Jalen Hurts is the guy or not. And even if he's the guy going into the season, and we had talked about this last week, we don't know how good that guy going into the season is going to be. And the Eagles are certainly going to bring in another quarterback or two. Mm-hmm. But how confident are you that Jalen Hurts can at least help this team take the next step? Or do you think that the Eagles are just looking at him as Mr. Right now as opposed to Mr. Right?
See, that's a great question. And it's kind of hard to say. When you take him as high as second, you see something there. And you look mm-hmm. at what he did when he was at Alabama and Oklahoma, and you're hoping that that's something to build off of. But it's like the quarterback position is unique within itself because you constantly have to evolve at that position. I heard, we were talking about how he's going to work out in offseason with the receivers, and he's going to try to work on the timing and things of that nature. That's great. I mean, I think that he's taking the right step in order to put himself in position to be successful. But I still believe that there should be a quarterback competition at that position. But with Carson Wentz leaving and him being the only one there, you would probably think that he would be the front runner. But when you got the new coach coming in, new offense, new terminology, so he's going to be right there with every other quarterback that they decide to bring in, or if they even draft a quarterback. So I think right now the Eagles are picking like 6th, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
Yeah, 6 overall. Yeah.
So you might be in position, they might draft a quarterback. And now Jalen Hurts is back in the position that he was in when, Carson Wentz was there. So it's really kind of hard to say. When you're talking about that, drafting as high as 6th, and you have these young quarterbacks that are coming out that are the new prototypical quarterback, the athletic type, running everything like that. Mm-hmm. You got to ask yourself, do you take a quarterback? Because it's the same, to me, it's the same position that the Atlanta Falcons are in right now. You're in a position right now where you have to think 10 to 15 years in the future. And the one position that you always have to get right when you're drafting as high as you are is the signal caller, the trigger puller. That's what I like to call him, the guy that's going to pull the trigger. And, me and my partner, John Fricke, talk about this morning. He was talking about, the Falcons need to trade back and get draft picks. Trade back and get draft picks for what? You're not making a Super Bowl run. You're not making a Super Bowl run with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan has 2 to 3 years left at best. So now if you're picking at 4, you have to think about the future because this is still a business. And the Eagles are in the same situation. You just traded away the face of your franchise. You need to replace that. Now, you need to figure out if that's Jalen Hurts or is it one of these quarterbacks that you're going to be aggressive and try to move up and get? You know what I mean?
Sure. No, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised. Would you be surprised if they took a quarterback at 6?
You know what? As high as that is, and the quarterbacks, the young quarterbacks that are out there, would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, neither would I. Right now, I still don't think they do it, but that doesn't mean I'd be totally shocked and surprised that if they did do it. But just one more thing for you here. Actually, two quick things. One more football thing with Carson Wentz. A lot of reports were out there, and we've talked about it at great length about what type of guy he was in the locker room. Was he a good teammate? What type of teammate was he? I believe he was a good teammate to his fellow players, but I don't believe he was a good teammate in terms of following the game plan, in terms of allowing himself to be coachable. That's kind of how I see it. When something like that is going astray in a locker room, who deals with it? Is it better that a coach gets involved, or is it better that players police themselves?
It kind of all depends. if you have that kind of relationship with him. A player can do that. But when you look, I don't know the structure of the Indianapolis Colts. I would assume that when Carson Wentz comes in, that they're going to be looking at him to be the leader, but I think he's going to have to probably earn that.
Okay.
He's probably going to have to earn that a little bit. I think Darius Leonard just comes to mind. The young linebacker that they have was probably going to be, the leader of the team or something like that. He's going to have to come in and earn that respect. It's a little bit different nowadays. It's like the animal kingdom. When you come in and you're the big dog, everybody knows that what you're supposed to do, but you got to show them that you can play. Because when you think about it, Mark, he's living off of what he did that MVP year. Like they're thinking they're trying to get MVP Carson Wentz. MVP Carson Wentz wasn't on the field last year for whatever reason. I know it wasn't all his fault. I want to say that first because I don't want anybody to hear this and say, oh my God, he's blaming Carson Wentz for everything. That's not what I'm saying. I know it was a lot going on. The offensive line was banged up. Didn't have a running game and all those other things. But whether it's right or wrong, it all falls on the quarterback. He's the guy that gets all the accolades, and he's the guy that gets all the blame when it goes bad. So he's going to be looked at to see, and that's been the talk, whether or not he can get back to that MVP form that he had that year he got hurt. So that's going to be on him, how hard he's willing to work, and Coach Frank Wright, putting him in the position to be successful.
Last thing for you, Hugh Douglas III on this fine Hughes Day. I need you to get some help going up there in Atlanta for Joel Embiid to be the MVP of the National Basketball Association, because people are just telling us that we're all homers here in Philadelphia, but this man's playing out of his mind. So if you could, I don't know, drum up some more conversation down there in hot Atlanta, that would help us out a great deal.
You know what? We're dealing with our own situation. Trae Young not getting voted into the All-Star game. He was
that's right.
Player voted. So we're dealing with that. And you know what? It's funny that you're talking about something that I touched on today.
Really?
It's amazing to me, Mark. And all due respect to professional basketball players, all due respect. But for whatever reason, it feels to me like basketball players, some of the analysts and some of the players hate the fact that the younger players are making the kind of money that they're making and getting the accolades that they're getting. And they don't want to give them their props. It's like they're like, no, not calling out any names, but I've been around a few basketball players. They always talk about what they used to do. And you know what we used to say about that? Nobody cares about what you used to do. I mean, you had a great career. Let these young guys play, man. Let these young guys do their thing. You know what I'm saying? Why are you hating on these young cats? Just let them play. Give them the props. But that's basketball. That's why we're still having that debate over Michael Jordan and LeBron James. They're both great players, man. Let it go. Just let
No. We gotta fight till the end of time over who's the better basketball player.
Why though? But why?
I don't know. It's supposed to be fun. That's what I'm told, but it just makes me want to bash my head against the wall.
Like that. Or the one that I hate. Back in the day, my game was more physical. Dude, your game was a different game. It was supposed to be physical. It's not physical anymore. That's just like, say, back in the day when I played football, they played bump and run coverage. Guess what? They don't play bump and run coverage anymore. It is what it is. Yeah,
it's a different game. It's a different time. It's a different time. That's why comparing generational players is just so obnoxious, because we'll never know until they invent that time machine and the flux capacitor. That's when we'll finally find out.
Back in time and figure out who's the best player. Hey, I'm the best player of my era. Yeah, we're going with that, man.
All right. Well, look, I look forward to tracking the hair progress as we talk to you throughout the coming months.
I don't know about hopefully this is just my forehead swollen, because my forehead just looks super big.
I'm looking at the monitor here. Yeah. It looks. It's
really
it's a little swole. It's a little swole.
You think so?
A little swole, not crazy. You look good.
But yesterday I had a little dent right here, like I had a booty on my forehead. It was weird. So we'll see. All
right. Yeah, you're gonna have the mohawk or maybe like a Danny Zuko pompadour. I don't know.
Because I don't know. Just hopefully this swelling goes down in my head, because I'm just like, gee whiz, it just looks weird.
You look like $1 million damn dollars, my friend.
Well, thanks a lot, Marc Farzetta. Appreciate you.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for giving me some extra time. Happy Hughes Day to you, my friend.
All righty then. Happy Hughes Day. Have a good one. I'm out.
Hugh Douglas III on the Sados Investments guest line. Thank you, Hugh.
Thank you.
All right, let me get a public service announcement in. All right, I'm going to speak to you plainly here, folks. And this is really for a very small audience. I'm going to say this right now. If you're a young man and you're losing your hair, I noticed I was losing my hair at like 17. I had a little triangle missing here from my beautiful, just amazing, luscious hairline. And it was like a missing hair. It was like a baldness, so like a little triangle right here. And at that point, I shouldn't have done it. But shortly thereafter, I fought the good fight for a long time. But to all the young men out there that are losing their hair at a young age, just let go. You might debate it for a while, and yeah, fight the good fight. I did. I fought the good fight for a while. I properly positioned my hair to hopefully look less bald. But you know what? Eventually, I came to the conclusion. I said, it's gone. Shaved it. Probably around the time I was 30. So I fought the good fight for a while. Okay. I didn't really rock so much a comb over as much as I did a comb forward. My wife likes to call it the flap. And yeah, once I noticed this hair all was gone, it was like, yeah, it's got to go. And I'll tell you what, I haven't looked back. Not one day. Not one day I've regretted it. Not even a little bit. So all the young men out there, when you're feeling like you really got to position the hair in the proper spot, see you later. Just let go. Just let go. That's my public service announcement. Don't be looking at those longingly at those little ads on the late night TV. Just make sure, fight the good fight as I did, and then shave. Just be done with it, and you'll never look back. Public service announcement for you right there. There you go. Enjoy. I do want to tell you about our good friends at DraftKings. Oh man, I can't wait to talk to you about my big bets. My big bets for today are absolutely incredible. As I lost my camera there for a second, but here's what I got for you. Make sure you take advantage of all the things that DraftKings has to offer. Not quite time for the madness that March always gives us in the college basketball scene, but I'll tell you right now, you got to take advantage of what DraftKings has for you. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, giving all new players the chance to cash $100. That's right, $100. New customers can bet $1 on any team to hit a three-pointer in any basketball game this week. And if you're able to hit that three-pointer, you could turn $1 into $100. So make sure you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use promo code Farzy. That's promo code Farzy to get your shot to turn $1 into $100 when any team hits a three-pointer in any basketball game that you bet on. That's promo code Farzy for new customers to get a shot at 100-to-1 odds on any basketball team to hit a three-point shot, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, present in Pennsylvania. New customers only. Restrictions apply in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. Winning pays out for $25 free bets. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And how about our friends at Sky Motor Cars? A big thank you to our friends at Sky Motor Cars. If you don't know Sky Motor Cars, what are you doing, folks? Go to SkyMotorCars.com. Sky Motor Cars is the premier luxury car dealership in the greater Philadelphia area that promises to provide honest and efficient service, whether you're buying, selling, or trading in your car. But Sky Motor Cars not just has luxury vehicles. No. They got inventory for cars for everybody's budget. Stay tuned. We have special giveaways going on all week from Sky Motor Cars and their partners with the Philadelphia Eagles. With Carson Wentz, for instance, we were giving away a jersey last week. Plenty of more stuff to give away courtesy of Sky Motor Cars. Go visit SkyMotorCars.com to learn more. And when you buy or sell your next vehicle, make sure you go with Sky Motor Cars. SkyMotorCars.com and tell them Marc Farzetta sent you. And how about this? I hope you've been having fun with the new Fan Up app because it is a blast. If you want to be a shot caller and a big baller, just like Diddy said in the song, well, you got to get Fan Up. You can win cash. You can win tons of great prizes like a Donovan Mitchell Mint 10 autographed rookie card. You can also win a pair of Jordans for yourself, or you can win all three of those great prizes. Download the Fan Up app right now. Days of playing fantasy sports alone are over. Enter Fan Up's super fun daily and weekly contest. Answer fun questions, and you could rise on the Fan Up leaderboard. So you're competing with so many. Squad up and make sure you team up with your friends as well, and you could win even more. Fan Up. I've been doing it with my friends. It is a great time, and it's an absolute blast. It's fun. It's easy. It's the only place to win the hottest brand prizes as well with your bets. And you could also make sure you take advantage of winning things like those Jordans I mentioned a second ago. Any day, week, or season, you could be the MVP with Fan Up. Download the Fan Up app in the App Store. Use promo code FANUP. That's promo code FANUP and get 2,000 bonus points. That's Fan Up, and may the best fan win. Let's do our social media check-in. I told you I'd be checking YouTube today. You guys are all over the place. I mentioned yesterday that I'd be checking YouTube for the comments and all that. First, shout out to Nasty Knuckles. Good morning. Good morning to you, Nasty Knuckles. I asked the question earlier The social media check-in, by the way, brought to you by Steak and Maine. Check out Steak and Maine in Northeast Maryland. Absolutely fantastic. I said, how will you remember Alshon Jeffrey? Pete tells us, Pete Norman says, as a snake. So that would go along with the rat part of it. Brett Geiger tells us that along with the Sixers trying to get Kyle Lowry, they also need to bolster the bench. I couldn't agree with that more. How about this? Brian Devaney hitting us up saying that he'll remember Alshon Jeffrey as a fond memory, ups and downs, but he contributed to this team. Deshaun disappointed. That is true. Chip Kelly ruined us with Deshaun Jackson, or ruined Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly ruined Deshaun Jackson. He absolutely did. Thank you, Taylor Hunkel, for tweeting us or sending us that on YouTube. I think it's in reference to the interview with Hugh Douglas on losing one's hair. LOL, this is great. It was. That was one of the more fun conversations we've had with you. And he was never dull. Like the first interview, he didn't even have a shirt on. Second interview, he just wore the tank top. Jeremy's hitting us up with Hugh. Yes, we all remember. John Axelband says that Hugh needs to be back in Philly. I concur wholeheartedly. There was one more thing I wanted to get in here. I saw was it Kevin Smith? Yeah, Kevin Smith and Mac Lionel, I think, are hitting us up with the same type of idea here. Hurts ain't it. Jacob Creed also telling us the same thing. How could you say that you're going to know how long this is going to take to rebuild the Eagles if you don't know what Hurts is? That's exactly my point. That's what I said to Hugh. I think anyone that's telling you how long a rebuild is going to take with the Eagles is lying to you because they don't know. It's as simple as that. They don't know. I don't know. I wish I knew. Jalen Hurts could go out there week 1 and be phenomenal. And then he could play like that through the rest of the season. We don't know what Jalen Hurts is yet. And that's the scary part about it. And I think the Eagles don't even know what Jalen Hurts is yet. But let me set the scene for you for a second. Let's say the Eagles don't draft a significant quarterback. Let's say they don't get one of the top 5 guys in this draft, okay? Trey Lance, whoever. Let's say they don't get Justin Fields, whoever it might be. Let's say they don't draft one of the studs in the early goings of this draft. They don't take a quarterback at 6, but they take one later for insurance purposes in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, whatever it might be. Let's say they draft somebody later. And then they go out and they sign Ryan Fitzpatrick. If Jalen Hurts is your starting quarterback going in the next season, and he gets benched in week 4 or 5 because he totally looks like he's in over his head and they have to go to a Ryan Fitzpatrick type, Howie Roseman needs to be fired on the spot. Fired on the spot because of all that you gave up. Not just for Jalen Hurts, but what you gave up for the quarterback position from that point on, or from that point previously. Because you had given up a lot for Carson Wentz and you would really mess with his head in giving up or in drafting Jalen Hurts. And then Jalen Hurts turns out to be not good anyway? Oh, my God. Fired on the spot. That is the one thing that I think would actually shift Jeffrey Lurie's thinking to, we got to move on. And Howie, thanks, but no thanks. Deuces, see you later. That's the one thing. And I think Mac was getting into that as well, saying, Mac Lionel was getting into that as well, saying Hurts took over and hurt the team in 50 ways. Or Hurts came here and hurt the team in 50 ways. Laugh out loud. Ruined Wentz. He knows Carson wasn't mentally tough. Anyway, but yeah, it didn't help things. We all get that. That's our social media check-in brought to you by our friends at Steak and Maine. Also want to give you our morning rush. I've been waiting for a while to give you this one here because this is some fun stuff. Morning rush. First off, I want to give you some scores from last night in case you are just waking up to this. The Wizards did beat the Lakers in overtime, 127-124. Bradley Beal, 33 points. Russell Westbrook, an assist shy of a triple-double. He had 32 points, 14 rebounds. LeBron James had 31 points. That was a game I wanted to stay away from. I was tempted to bet it, but I was like, the Wizards are going to show up for this with Westbrook and Beal, and obviously they don't have AD out there in Lakerland, but I wanted to stay away from betting that game. Turns out I actually would have won. I actually liked the Wizards covering. I think they were -6 going into that game. Don't quote me on that. Wizards, +6 going in. No, -6 going in that game. Wizards right there, 127-124, winning in overtime. And then we'll get to our big bet segment in just a second. But that was one score I wanted to make sure I gave you. Some other things here in our morning rush. If you're like me, right around the time you were in the middle of puberty, the American Pie movie came out. The first American Pie movie came out. Apparently, Tara Reid did an interview and said that the producers are actually working on another American Pie movie. I think this would be the 4th installment of the American Pie movies. I'm all for it. Let's see them old like me now. Let's see how they're doing now. Tara Reid said that in a recent interview that the producers are working on to put together another American Pie movie, but they have to coordinate everybody's schedules. I didn't think they were all that busy anyway, but I'm not judging. But yeah, let's see another movie. I mentioned this at the top of the show. I teased this at the top of the show. Folks, we're just moments away from being taken over by robots. We're sending things to Mars now. We're taking pictures on Mars. We're recording sound on Mars. Everything's going on Mars right now. We're just robots away from the future. Robots taking us over in the future. But now it's gone maybe a little bit too far. Meet Gita. 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 I was just saying to my wife last night, I really miss traveling. And the pandemic sucks for so many reasons, but in the selfish reasons, in the selfish vicinity of things, I really miss traveling. I miss going to the airport, hopping on a flight, going overseas, wherever it might be. I really miss traveling. But when I go to the airport, I think I'll be using this. Meet Gita, the food delivering robot at the Philadelphia International Airport. Just take a look at this. Yeah, that's Gita. She follows you around. You order the food on Bluetooth. And Gita comes strolling up to you with your food inside the thing for contactless delivery as part of the pandemic. So it's rushed along the robotic world, to say the least there. I'd order it. I looked at the menu. You could order yourself a cup of coffee. It'll bring it over to you. I don't know how many of these things are roaming around, but those things are low to the ground. I'll say that. I'll be tripping over these things left and right. I know that. But yeah, so a person walks it around anyway, opens it up, and I think you take it out of the cooler and or the warmer. I don't know. And you have your cup of coffee, you have your sandwich, you have your meal right there, and you can stay at your gate. So, yeah, basically, robot takeover is where we're headed. Let's get to the Big Bet segment brought to you by our good friends. Morning Rush, by the way, brought to you by Sky Motorcars, SkyMotorcars.com. Big Bet segment brought to you by DraftKings. Ladies and gentlemen, I am 9-1. 9-1 in my last 10 games. I told you last night that the Bulls, I liked them anyway to beat the Wizards. It was a 1 point, the Bulls to beat the Rockets. It was a 1 point line. So I like the Bulls. They won by 20. So I was feeling really good about that going into the fourth quarter. The Bulls won 120-100 over the Rockets. Zach LaVine had 21 points in that game. That's a guy I'd like to see on the Sixers in the not too distant future. The game I like tonight, Nets right now, -7.5 going up against the Kings. Nets are hosting the Kings. I like the Nets covering that number. And I'll say this. Sixers right now going into tonight, +2 going against the Raptors. I'm going to say it. Sixers win tonight. They win in Toronto, and they take it to the Raptors tonight. Sixers will win tonight, but my big bet for the evening will be Nets covering the -7.5 against the Sacramento Kings coming to town. My thanks to Hugh Douglas III for joining us on this fine Hughes Day at the amazing time we always have talking to Hugh Douglas and all his takes. My thanks, Jim Hyden, for producing the program. Also, this is a fine Buzz Sports and Entertainment production. Thanks for watching, everybody. Look forward to talking to you guys tomorrow here on The Farzy Show. Have a great day, everybody.